So we see that in that case, that the most favored nation treatment can have some huge consequences for the state, because when the state gives something to one partner with the most favored nation treatment, this advantage given to one partner will be extended to other partners. Okay, so if you have this, within the World Trade Organization, if State A as a member state of World Trade Organization is giving something to one state, State A will have to grant this treatment to every member of the World Trade Organization. So every one of the 63 plus 8 of all the members of the World Trade Organization. So we can see here that what could be the consequences of the most favored nation treatment. So if you have only one single treaty between A and C, which is very favorable to C, this treaty between A and C, the benefit of the provisions of that treaty will be granted to all the members of the World Trade Organization. So what you give to one by the most favorable nation treatment, you give to everyone within the World Trade Organization. So of course, states may try to reduce the circumstances in which they have to respect the most favored nation treatment. And we will see for the last hour, we will see the scope of application of the most favored nation treatment. So, what is the scope of application of the most favored nation treatment? We can see two elements. The first one regards what we call the phases of investment covered. Okay? So, phases of we have two options. The post-establishment model and the pre-establishment model. So post-establishment and pre-establishment. Well, we start with this one. The post-establishment model. It means that the admission of the investment, the admission of the foreign investment on the territory of the state is fully governed by the laws and regulations of the host state. Okay? It means that the state has the right to discriminate between investors. Okay? So in the post-establishment model, the admission of the investment, of the foreign investment, is fully governed by the laws and regulations of the host state. It means that the state has the right to discriminate between national and foreign investors, and has the right to discriminate foreign investor or between two foreign investors. So that's the model we find most of the time, and the one which is endorsed by the Cambodia-China Bilateral Investment Treaty of 2000. In Article 2.1, each contracting party shall encourage investment in the other contracting party to make investments in this territory and admit such investments in accordance with its laws and regulations. Okay? It means that the national treatment and the most favored nation treatment do not apply to the admission of the investment. Okay? Is that there is no national treatment regarding the admission of investment and no most favorable nation treatment regarding the admission of the investment. Okay, so this is what you have here in the Cambodia-China bilateral investment treaty. Okay. So in that case, the national treatment and the most favored nation treatment will be applicable only once the investment has been admitted on the territory of the state. But the state has the right to say, what do we say? The state could say, okay, to create a bank, okay, you need, if you are a national citizen, let's say, $5 million, and if you are a foreigner, to create a bank, well, you need $10,000. So of course, this is more favorable than this one, but there is no violation of the national treatment because a state, if we are under that model, a state has the right to discriminate nationals and foreigners, or to discriminate one foreigner and one other foreigner regarding the admission of the investment. It means that, well, we have this, I don't know, but if a French investor can be admitted on the Cambodian market, in the sector of telecommunication, okay? It's not because a French investor has been admitted in the Cambodian market in this sector that a Chinese investor could say, well, you have given an authorization to the French investor, I want the same one. Okay? The state has the right to discriminate. The state has the right to decide in accordance with its own laws and regulation to admit or not to admit a foreign investor in its own territory. Okay? So this is the post-establishment model. This is the most common model. Okay? And we have the pre-establishment model. That one. So the pre-establishment model, the one we can find in what we call the CAFTA, an agreement between Central American states and the United States of America, Article 10.4, most favored nation treatment. Each party shall report to investors and another party treatments not as favorable than that it accords in like circumstances to investors of any other party or of any non-party with respect to the establishment, acquisition, expansion, management, conduct, operation, and sale, or other disposition of investments in its territory. So in that case, it means that the most favored nation treatment applies with respect to the establishment, acquisition, etc. of the investment. It means that if you have this provision, if the let's say Ecuador, which is a party to that treaty, okay? If you have a US investor in Ecuador, okay? And if the US investor wants to operate in the sector of telecommunication, if Ecuador opened its market in the sector of telecommunication to any foreign investor, then the US investor has the right to invest in that sector in Ecuador. Okay? It means that here the most favored nation treatment does not only apply to the investment once it has been admitted, but only in the process of admission of the investment, but also in the process of establishment of the investment, which is of course a more liberal option, a more liberal model of protection of the investment. Okay, so most of the time, the model that is included in the treaties is the post-establishment model. It means that the state has the right to decide if it allows the foreign investment in its own territory, on its own market. But some treaties, and especially treaties signed by or concluded by the United States of America, Japan, Canada, those treaties are relying on the post-establishment, the pre-establishment model, meaning that there can be the state cannot discriminate to foreign investors in the process of admission of the investment. Okay. So this is the first element we can. The second one is regarding the exceptions to the most favored nation treatment. So exceptions to the most favored nation treatment. So in almost every single bilateral investment treaty, we have two exceptions to the most favored nation treatment. We will see some other examples, but the main exceptions that we can find in almost every bilateral investment treaty are very common. The first one is the exception regarding the advantages granted under a treaty establishing a free trade area or a customs union. Okay? Treaty establishing a free trade area or a customs union. So, we'll explain this. Okay, if we go back, on this, okay? So, remember, let's say that let's say that state A is France. I can't write it there. Let's say that state B is Cambodia. And state C is, well, Germany. Okay? Okay, so France, state A, Cambodia, and Germany. All are members of the World Trade Organization. Okay? Let's say that, well, it may not be the case, but let's say that this pen is produced in Cambodia. Okay? And that this pen produced in Cambodia is exported on the territory of France, on the French market. Okay? So we have pen from Cambodia. And let's say that the tariff on this, the French tariff, is, let's say, 7%. Okay? Can you read that? Let's say 7%. So this one is the Cambodian peso. And here, this one is the German one. And of course, as France and Germany are members of the European Union, okay, here, EU, of course, Germany will export its pen from Germany to France with a tariff of 0, because it's a customs union. It means that the products go freely from Germany, France. There's no tariff within the European Union. Of course, 0 is better than 7. Okay? So, Cambodia cannot claim the benefit of that, of this advantage given by France to Germany. Cambodia cannot claim the benefit of that provision or that treaty because there is a permanent exception to the most favored nation treatment for treaties establishing a free trade area or a customs union. Okay, so that was the example for trade. We have exactly the same for investment. If we have, okay, so a treaty, let's say that E is Cambodia and A is France. Okay, so A is France, B is Germany, and C is Italy. E is Cambodia. If you have the treaty between A and E, so between Cambodia and France, which include the most favored nation treatment. Okay? A will have to grant, so France will have to grant the benefits of the exemption to investors coming from E if there is an exemption of tax on investment coming from A, B, or C. Okay? So if you have a regional integration organization treaty by A, B, and C, Cambodian investor may try to claim the benefit of the provisions of that treaty between A, B, and C. Okay? But all the treaties concerning the creation of a free trade area or customs union states that the benefits of the most favored nation treatment cannot allow the importation of an advantage that has been granted in a free trade area treaty or a customs union treaty. Okay, so of course France is not under the obligation to give the benefit of the establishment of a free trade area with Germany, Italy, etc., to non-European states. Okay, so we have in every single bilateral investment treaty an exception to the most favored nation treatment, stating that the advantage is granted by treaties establishing free trade area or customs union will not be extended in favor of the investors of the other party. Okay? Do you think that we need such an exception? Do we need in every bilateral investment treaty a provision stating that the benefits of the most favored nation treatment cannot be used to incorporate the